oh, let's just make this character black because we can. But then they don't have like any real storytelling to back up why it is this way. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the Little Mermaid movie that was just released on the 26th, which was just barely on Friday. As always, we're going to be talking about the non-spoilers, and then I will warn you when there is a spoiler so that you don't get spoiled if you do want to watch the movie. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, I do want to start off by saying I will not be really touching on the controversy surrounding this movie. I know that a lot of people were either super happy or super upset that Halle Bailey is playing Ariel, and I don't really care. I just care if the movie is good or if the movie is bad. I just want to put that out there, and I don't want to read any of the comments saying, well, Ariel's from Dutch land or whatever, so she's supposed to be white. I don't want to hear that, because they actually touched on that in this movie, and in this one, they're in the Caribbean, so maybe I will talk about this a little bit more. But I feel like Disney is like representation for the sake of representation, but it doesn't seem like they're actually put any thought into the story of why their representation should be there. So it's like, oh, let's just make this character black because we can. But then they don't have like any real storytelling to back up why it is this way. And so that I feel like that's why people don't like it or it falls flat. And when people do like it, I feel like there's still that underlining thing that, oh, Disney's just doing this for a cash grab. But with this movie, sure, Disney might just be doing it for a cash grab, but it didn't have that feeling like they were doing it for a cash grab, because they explained like they're in the Caribbean, so almost all of the cast is a person of color. And Eric's like the only white one in the entire movie because he washed up on shore. But it didn't feel like Disney was just saying like, oh, we need to make somebody a person of color, so let's like, how do we do that? You know, it seemed like it was very intentional and they were doing it with purpose instead of just because they needed to do it, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to be saying about that. I just care about the movie, if it was good, if it was entertaining, all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and just get into the spoiler-free review. I will say that the CGI is not very good. The graphics are a little bit distracting in some points, and then other parts, it didn't really bother me that much because I was entertained with something else that was going on. But the graphics are a little annoying. For example, and this isn't really a spoiler because there's videos of it, whenever they have the full body shots of the mermaids, or if there's like a mermaid with a lot of stuff going on around the mermaids, it's really bad. But when they do close-ups and their hair is just kind of moving, you can tell that the hair is a little bit CGI'd, but it's not super distracting. And I also thought I was going to get really annoyed with Flounder and Scuttle and Sebastian, and the only one that I really didn't like was Sebastian, because for some reason, they animated him to look super realistic, except for his eyes. His eyes were like cartoon animated, and it was really distracting and kind of freaky looking, but Sebastian looked really weird, and Sebastian was in it more than the other two, so I don't know why they decided to make his eyes cartoony and then everything else realistic, because it was kind of distracting. I will say, I think the actor who played Sebastian was really good, and he was really funny, and his lines were really good. I laughed a couple of times because of Sebastian's lines, but Flounder was completely CGI'd to look real, the eyes and everything. So his wasn't really distracting, and Scuttle wasn't really distracting. That's about it. Let's go on to the actual characters. I think that they did a very good job of depicting all of the characters accurately from the cartoons. I get if you are somebody that likes the original book or the original story, you're not gonna get that at all because this is the Disney's reimagining of the Disney cartoon. So it's not gonna be how the book is. But the characters all were really good. I thought that Javier Bardem did really well. Had that scary powerfulness, but also the super nice, gentle father. So that was good. I also thought Melissa McCarthy was amazing as Ursula. I thought she was funny. It would have been cool to see Lizzo as Ursula, because I know she was like really trying to be Ursula, but I think Melissa McCarthy did great. Her accent was funny throughout the whole thing, and I didn't really see her as Melissa McCarthy playing a character or playing like Melissa McCarthy, the comedian, was really good at embodying the animated version of Ursula. And same with Halle Bailey. She was so good at playing the real life version of the animated Ariel, but with her own little twist on it. It was great to see like these two worlds kind of colliding and like collabing and working together. She has a perfect Ariel voice. I'm somebody that is like a stickler with singing, and if the singing's bad but it's meant to be bad, then that's fine. But if the singing is meant to be good and then it's bad, it's like super distracting. And Halle Bailey's voice is super good, and there's some parts where she sounds like the original Ariel from the animated movie. Then there's other parts that she kind of puts her own flair onto it, and it's super, super good. So if you're worried about the voice and like the actors that portray them, I think the actors actually did really well. Bad CGI, good acting. I will say though, Disney always puts in new songs in their live action. Like with Beauty and the Beast, there's a whole new song. In Aladdin, Jasmine gets her own song, and I don't like them. I think that they don't hold up to the classic music from the original. And I don't know if they just hire bad songwriters now, but I was really worried about that in this new one, and my worries came true because Eric's song was so cheesy and it was just kind of dumb. His voice is great, but it kind of reminded me, if you've ever seen Into the Woods, the song that Chris Pine and Armie Hammer, they sing together, how cheesy that song is, and they're like splashing in the water and stuff. It reminded me of that. Like he's just like ripping his shirt off and like getting soaked by the waves. It was super cheesy. And also Scuttle has a rap because it's voiced by Awkwafina, which I love Awkwafina, but Scuttle's song was so annoying. And I don't know if that's from the musical or not, because I haven't seen the musical in a long time, but it was very, very annoying. But also it was near the end of the movie, and I think I was just kind of getting like, okay, let's wrap it up a little bit. Let's move on to the storyline and plot. I think that it was really good. It was almost scene for scene the exact same as the cartoon. And something that I have disliked from the live action reimagining is they deviated from the plot so much. Like with Mulan, for instance, you can't even compare them. Mulan live action to Mulan cartoon, like they're completely separate films. But then also some of the other ones, I'm like, why did we even have this movie? Because it's exactly like the cartoon. Why not just keep the cartoon? With this one, I understand like we didn't necessarily need this movie because it is scene for scene the exact same as the animated film. But what I will say is they did so well on making it scene for scene that I wasn't disappointed the entire time. Like Lion King. I was like, why am I watching this? I could just watch the cartoon. It's the exact same. But I don't need to see real lions singing when I can see cartoon lions singing. I don't know why it's different to me. Like, it was scene for scene the exact same, but I didn't have that sense of why am I watching this? I don't know how to articulate that into like a short, concise sentence. So, but this one, I'm not necessarily disappointed that they made it because the colors were great, the brightness was great, the water looked beautiful when they were not in the water. So the sets, the kingdom was cool, and I felt more immersed in the storytelling of this one. So I think if you are worried about the live action not holding up to the cartoon and you being super disappointed, I think this one is actually one that you should go and see because it's not a flop and it's not super bad like Peter Pan and Wendy. If you saw my review on that one, you know how much I hated that movie. With Peter Pan and Wendy, they used real sets, but they were in like dingy, like an island off the coast of the United Kingdom or something. It was like overcasted and it looked ugly, and how we imagine Neverland is like this beautiful like imagination island with like rainbows and mermaids and all that kind of stuff. And the color palette of the film did not match the cartoon's color palette. But then the color palette of this film really did match, and it was cool. And they used like bioluminescence. It was like very aesthetically pleasing to the eye. But also a little bit of a complaint when they were at night. It seemed like they had the contrast a little too low, and I was like squinting to see see what was going on. This isn't a spoiler if you have seen the cartoon version of this film. When Ursula becomes a giant and it's at night and it's lightning and it's super, super dark, and I like physically could not see what was going on the screen. It reminded me of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Like, you're like straining to see what's going on because it's super, super dark. I could just be old. That could be it. So I did think that the length of this movie was way too long. I know that Disney's not just for kids anymore, but I do know that the demographic is probably going to be younger than me, that's for sure. It was pretty long, and I was kind of falling asleep a little bit near the middle to end. I think they just stretched a couple of the scenes just a little bit too long, which then dragged the movie a little bit too long. Like showing her swimming for 5 minutes when they should have done 3 minutes. They were just a little bit too long, and then I think it just stretched the movie a little bit too much. One thing that I didn't like is Ariel's sisters. I thought that they were all stunning people, but they were very unnecessary, and they were kind of unnecessary in the animated version, but in the musical, the sisters have a lot more of a role, and I wish that they would have kind of put that in there, because the movie was 2 hours long, so it's a pretty long movie for a kid's film. I think they could have cut certain scenes and added a little bit more screen time for the actual sisters, so the sisters had more of a purpose. But then also the animation and the CGI, whenever the sisters were there, it was kind of annoying to look at. Specifically, there's this one sister. She's the one that has the super, super snow white hair. She looked the most fake out of all of them, and it was really annoying to look at her, and my reality kept like cutting out, and I was like put back into like, oh yeah, this is not real. Anyway. Wow, there's more positives of this film than there are negatives, which is so good to hear because Disney's live actions have been garbage. Obviously, we did not need this movie, and I am somebody that stands by Disney creating new content instead of just reimagining all their old content, because I just kind of want to relive the Disney Renaissance again. But I left the theater not regretting my purchase of my ticket and not regretting my time used. So that's worth something. And I think if you are somebody that is excited for this movie, you are going to love this movie. This is probably going to be your favorite Disney live action film for sure. If you are somebody who is dreading this movie, I would just go with a little bit less of a negative mindset, because I was there with a negative mindset only because I hate Disney live action films. I don't like any of them except for maybe The Jungle Book. And so I was going in with the expectations of this movie being absolute garbage, and I left pleasantly surprised. But if I went in with a better attitude, I think I would like it even more. Yeah, this movie was just pretty good. All of my complaints are nitpicking complaints. And so I think everybody should go see this movie because it was actually pretty good. And I'm pleasantly surprised. Editing me here, I totally forgot to tell you what my score would be out of 100. I would definitely give this movie a 65 to a 72 out of 100. So, pretty good. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you go see the movie and I hope you like the movie. If you don't, if you did, both people can leave comments down below in the comment section because I would love to hear your thoughts on it, as long as it's positive and constructive as always. If you would like to see more content from me, go ahead and like and subscribe to this video. Next week, we are going to be talking about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2. And I'm super excited for that one. So stick around because it's going to be fun. So thank you. Bye.